You can't be upset about the price and wish it was better. Because
Well, I mean,
well, you can
watch
be.
me.
Would I behave as insufferably as in that Meta advert with Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pratt?
Only if you want to, I guess.
You are a tech bro, so it's a different kind of insufferable potentially.
So loads of TVs have come sort of really close to hitting this particular sort of like color gamut benchmark. Like literally tested it yesterday, and it was just funny to see the number just straight away went 100.
I do love the slam head onto keyboard approach to TV naming convention. Just
It's funny when you
Q,
mentioned
F,
naming
7,
conventions
N,
earlier. I
yeah,
was like,
so
oh, you
good.
wait till we get to TV.
I did feel bad about slamming the Rog Ally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rog.
Rog Xbox Ally. Welcome everyone to the 19th episode of the TechRadar podcast. My name is Josephine Watson and I'm joined today, as always, by Hamish Hector.
hello.
As well as two of our very own TV experts, Matt Bolton
Hello.
and James Davidson.
Hi.
Now, as you might have guessed from the aforementioned AV aficionados, we're doing a special TVs focused episode this week where we'll be deep diving into the best screens you can buy in 2025, unpacking the hype between new TV tech and asking which features actually make the difference when it comes to home entertainment. But first off, here's Hamish with this episode's rendition of In Case You Missed It.
If you somehow missed it, Nintendo has a new console. The Switch 2 is here. While some initial reactions to its announcement were mixed, that hasn't stopped the handheld being labelled the fastest selling console of all time. Certainly the fastest selling Nintendo system. Microsoft is looking to get in on the handheld hype too with its ROG Xbox Ally and Ally X, which is making in partnership with Asus. They're an awful lot like the existing ROG Ally systems, but with Xbox-inspired design elements like contoured grips to mimic an Xbox controller, the standard ABXY layout, and a dedicated Xbox button. It was showcased at Xbox's conference, which made up part of this year's Summer Game Fest, an event which gave us trailers and dates for the likes of Resident Evil 9, 007 First Light, and Felt That Boxing, among many, many more. We also had WWDC 2025, though we had a whole special podcast on that filmed at Apple Park. So let's skip over to Google's software showcase, I/O 2025. Here we got to see plenty of new AI tools, including some scarily impressive AI video, which comes complete with audio, as well as our first look at Android XR. Google is partnering with 5 brands for now on various smart glasses that will blend AR and AI to lend a hand with directions, learning more about the world around you, and plenty of other tasks. The first Android XR hardware is hopefully due later this year, but most of the releases are expected in 2026.
Thanks so much for that, Hamish. Another busy month, as always. Big one for gaming as well. I think we'll touch on that. It's the closest thing in there, I think, to TVs adjacent for the first segment. So Nintendo Switch 2, we've had some time with it.
Yep.
We've been filming some videos with it in the studio. Have you guys had much of a chance to try it out yet or have a look at it in person?
Yeah. No. So I actually got to try out my friend's last Friday. I actually only recently bought the original Switch because it was on a deal. So then trying to justify the Switch 2 to my partner was not going to happen. But I thought the screen, like I liked the sort of larger screen. I did think it was like really nice, bright and colourful. Massive step up from my obviously original Switch. I've read that some people don't like find it as impressive as the OLED one, but you know, I think the Switch 2 looks great personally.
Yeah, we'll come back to that screen talk because, especially with you both being experts, I'd be keen to hear a bit more about your opinion on that. But Matt, have you tried it yet or seen it in person?
I've seen it in person. I'm more interested in the Xbox handheld personally. I have 2 Switches, and yet I'm just not really imagining spending the money that the Switch 2 costs to upgrade. It's just kind of where I'm at with my gaming time at the moment. But the Xbox, I'm liking the PC gaming handhelds. And I'm liking the idea. It's been a while since I actually had a Steam machine, anything that can play my Steam library, which is like fairly large. It's just not something I've been prioritizing recently. So I think one of those handhelds is more what I'm in the line for. So yeah, the Xbox One interests me. Here's a quiz. Can you guys correctly name the Xbox handheld without the aid of a prompter?
Yes. The Asus Rog Xbox Ally and the Asus Rog Xbox Ally X.
It's the S that gets me. It's the second X.
Is the downgraded version, which is interesting.
I thought it was a better version. Is it not?
The
No, I
X
think you're
the
right.
X I'm pretty sure the X is the better version.
Oh, I thought it was
Something
weird.
like specs,
I thought
yeah.
the X was the downgraded version because I was going to say I thought that was odd because the Series X is the better Xbox.
I'm Googling it.
No.
Oh,
No, it is.
better.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
Okay. Well,
okay. Well,
I got that wrong.
like Matt says, this is the problem. This is naming conventions have gone way, way out of whack. But coming back to the Nintendo Switch 2 for a second. So, like you said, the sort of screen debate is a big one. A lot of people still saying that obviously the Switch OLED is an OLED panel. We know we like OLED. It gets talked about a lot. We're going to talk about that later in the episode as well. I owned the Switch OLED. A lot of our TikToks feature my Switch OLED. And I've also now been playing on Switch 2. I prefer the screen on the Switch 2. I don't know what it is. I think the vibrancy is really nice. I'm not a screen tech expert. I don't know if you guys know what screen's in there or why I think it's better versus why other people seem to just be saying OLED best, OLED best.
I mean, it's an LCD. I don't know what kind of LCD off the top of my head. I don't want to get too bogged down in the stuff of the different kinds of LCD. I mean, it being HDR is probably a factor. It is probably just brighter and more vibrant and has a wider color gamut that the Switch itself is producing. Probably one of the main reasons they didn't go with OLED, apart from cost, is they've included VRR, variable refresh rates, which basically means that instead of being locked to 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second, which is kind of how it's always been with things, with games in the past, they can do basically any frames per second and the screen can show it correctly. And the problem with this in the past is you would get screen tearing if you had an odd number of frames per second. And what this means is, like, especially in handheld mode, this is really useful because it means if there's a really like busy active part of a game, it can just drop the frame rate a bit to account for that, and it won't make everything look horrible immediately. But this can be a problem with OLED screens. Again, I don't want to get bogged down in the technical side of why, but portable OLED screens in particular can have like flicker problems when you have VRR on. So probably without them wanting to put tons of time into solving that problem, just kind of go, it's fine, we'll just take cheap LCD and everyone will be happy, won't they?
I think that's probably the answer that a lot of people have needed to hear, because the confusion around why no OLED has pretty much dominated the conversations around Switch 2.
And this is exactly what the ROG Xbox Ally has done as well. And Asus has just straight up come out and said the flicker on OLED was an annoying problem to solve. We just went with LCD and that's fine.
And also I think that I know we sort of glossed over the cost thing, but that is a factor that OLED handhelds cost a lot more than non-OLED handhelds. And people are already upset about the sort of $400 price tag. You know, it would probably be $500-$600 with an OLED, because that's, you know, sort of the price of other OLED handhelds. So you can't sort of have it both ways. You can't be upset about the price and wish it was better. Because
well, I mean,
you can
watch
be.
me.
Okay, you can be, but it would be
You can be, but you're wrong.
pricier anyway, and it would still be in line with what other handhelds cost.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that's the thing. But I enjoyed trying it. But I feel
The Switch 2 this is.
Yes, the
That's what I
Switch
say.
2.
Have you already had your hands on the Robert?
No, I wish I had. But because I'm sort of in the flip side of where Matt's at, which is I've also been looking to get a handheld. I have a PC that can run my Steam library, so I'm kind of settled on that front. But, you know, I do like a lot of the Switch exclusives, massive Pokemon fan, and the idea of sort of the new Pokemon game, what's it? Legends ZA coming out later this year. The fact that that could run at a nice refresh rate with, you know, lots going on and not look like a potato sounds really awesome. So definitely excited to try that out, because I went back to my classic Switch this past weekend to do some sort of Pokemon Violet, and yeah, there was some noticeable running differences compared to my experience playing Mario Kart. But that's the thing as well. At the moment, the Switch 2 just has Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And as fun as that game is, I don't want to spend, you know, $450 buying a Mario Kart machine.
You can also play 5 frames per second Cyberpunk.
I could play 5 frames per second Cyberpunk.
You just mean Cyberpunk at launch on any.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Basically, I'm at the stage of I will get one, not right now, later in the year probably, when there are more things out and I can sort of start going through that catalogue of games.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the ROG Xbox Ally, I have to look at my screen every single time. I'll get there eventually. The ROG Xbox Ally, the thing I wanted to pick up on there is leakers are claiming that it could be up to £800, $1,000 for the more powerful Ally X. and the regular model could land close to the price range of the Steam Deck OLED, so around the £400, $550. I'm not going to say I take issue with that price point, but I am curious to know how they're going to offer the same value proposition as the Steam Deck, which is so well optimized because of SteamOS, versus Windows 11 experience in any setting, potentially, but especially in the gaming setting.
I mean, if the improvements to the Windows 11 experience are as good as promised, big caveat there, then that helps. It is more powerful than the Steam Deck, so it's kind of more future-proof and will have a certain flexibility that comes from that I think is fair. I mean, at the moment, everyone is completely guessing about the prices anyway because, they're withholding them probably specifically because they need to wait and see what tariffs are coming. And so any estimation of the price now is pure guesswork.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of not too worried about that.
I'm trying not to be. I think I'm so burned from Microsoft for many, many years of Microsoft being Microsoft. But I am excited for it. I think it's going to be a really cool piece of hardware.
The Xbox pricing is quite aggressive. So
is,
if
yeah.
they've been able to persuade Asus to match them on that, then it could be a surprise. It could be good.
And I guess with that sort of Game Pass integration, obviously, it's tied into the Xbox ecosystem. Perhaps they could hope that it will get more people subscribed to that service, be a bit of a loss leader for that platform. Maybe they'll try and sort of bring the price down a little bit more, but there's so many what ifs and buts, and who knows.
Well, I mean, what would be great is if they did the thing they offer with the Xbox consoles of the pay a price per month and get Game Pass and the thing.
I think they stopped that though. I remember I spoke to Dash about it a while ago. I might be wrong, but I think he mentioned that they weren't doing that.
Well, bring it back.
Bring it back. Because I have got an
It's an easy
Xbox
solution.
One X on that system because I remember at the time thinking that's a pretty good deal because I think it wasn't just, the same value spread out. It was actually cheaper to go in for that sort of subscription model. I think you'd save, I can't remember off the top of my head, I don't want to give a number, but you would save an amount that wasn't
nothing.
Yeah. On getting if you were going to get Game Pass and an Xbox anyway.
Yeah.
Which if you're going to get an Xbox, you might as well just get Game Pass because you get access to so many titles.
Game Pass did have some ridiculously good deals though for the first couple of years. I do miss those days. But then so did PlayStation Plus. Had some amazing deals in the early launch years as well. You have to sort of divorce yourself.
But
It's all right.
Now it's not bad, but the monthly games aren't great as a PS user. Every month is like, here it comes.
So right, someday people have a reason to buy PlayStation 5 Pro, and it's never going to be PlayStation Plus. No. And then we had these two big software events that Hamish touched on. Like you said, we've already had a whole episode on WWDC, but I think the thing that's quite interesting to talk about outside of the special we did is that they were two shows that happen the same time every year, Google I/O and WWDC, and yet this year I felt there was probably the biggest gap there's ever been. Now, on the Google side, lots of AI everywhere. We're used to that at this point, but I think it's in very stark contrast to how little AI there was at WWDC.
They kind of just went, let's talk about it. All right, let's move on.
Here it is, and here's
seeing
the
the chat, so they didn't really talk about Siri at all either.
No, just to say sorry about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's sort of going to, I think, hurt a lot of Apple's ongoing AI efforts because on the one hand, it's done a pretty good job. We've actually been trying Apple's intelligence and sort of its ChatGPT integration, some of its AI elements, and what it does isn't terrible. It doesn't live up to what was promised.
Yes.
And that's really something that is very un-Apple, which is normally it's very good at promising a high bar and achieving that high bar. And I feel like the first time in a while, or maybe sort of with a few repeated mistakes, if you include a Vision Pro, I feel like the HomePod to a certain degree as well. You're just seeing that they're promising and then sort of delivering lower.
Yeah.
And it's
I think
upsetting.
the reason it stung so much with Apple Intelligence was because it was a selling point of the iPhone 16. Like that was one of the big marketing pushes behind the iPhone 16.
It is.
And it still is.
You walk past the stores, it's like built for Apple Intelligence up in the window.
And that is where I think consumers have every right to feel quite frustrated because if you're sold something and you don't get it, within the year of buying the product as promised. You know, people knew it wasn't ready yet, but they also have that confidence in Apple, like you say, from a legacy of delivering a high bar product. I'm glad that Craig Federighi sat down with Lance, who's often on this podcast, as our viewers will know, as well as Mark Spanauer from Tom's Guide, and they did an interview with him, and he actually did address the Siri-shaped elephant in the room in that episode, and that's really positive that they are acknowledging that Siri was absent at the WWDC presentation keynote itself. But yeah, it will be interesting to see where they go with that. And then on the other side of things, Google I/O, AI everywhere, like I say. Did anyone have any stories that really jumped out to them? There was the AI mode for search, which has got the agentic shopping feature. That's probably the one that jumped out to me the most. Reveal of the new Veo 3 model with audio abilities. Gemini Live becoming free. New subscription plan called Gemini AI Ultra. Quite a few bits in there. Any interest in any of those stories? Are we any more likely to use AI now we've seen Google give us loads of new tools again?
I'm not more likely to use it, but I thought the Veo 3 was interesting. Obviously, they showed that brief clip with the badger and the owl. Yeah, delivers one line then leaves. But it just got me thinking. So I watched it this morning, and I sort of thought, well, at what stage is it going to get so advanced that we then start, they then start trying to hone in on them, like DreamWorks and Disney Pixar and stuff like that? Like, is it ever going to be credible enough to completely dethrone like these massive animation studios, or is it just going to give people a little chance to make their own little animations at home? But it's like getting that balance right, because obviously we all sit there and go, it's not going to be much of a problem or anything, but it is advancing at a rapid rate. We're seeing all these tech events and thinking, oh no, it's increasing. It's
gone from Will Smith scarfing down spaghetti to
Yeah.
a badger delivering one-liners. What were you going to say?
One of the interesting things, it is advancing at such a rapid rate, but there is, some people's theories, we are actually hitting the limit on how fast it can advance because we are running out of data to feed AI models. The only option past that is further data augmentation, which is where you basically take the data you have and change it so that you can feed twice as much data into an AI model, or AI-fed data goes back into AI models, which kind of everyone is like, it's not a good idea. That's the thing is, like, it's all advanced so far, like even faster than anyone expected. And the refrain you see a lot from AI kind of supporters on Reddit especially is, this is the worst it's ever going to be from now on. But, whether Moore's law is a big thing in computing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but basically it's this theory that computing power doubles, or the maximum possible computing power doubles every year or every generation? Can't remember.
I hope it's every generation, because I need a break from the development.
But yeah, it's just this theory that has held true for a very long time, that like tech advancements have kind of basically held up with. And there's kind of like sort of been a similar thing of like, right, AI is advancing this far every year, but we're hitting the difference is AI requires data to go into it to train it and develop it, and we're hitting a limit that this like purely technical development of processors doesn't have in the same way.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like the unknown is always going to be really scary. The internet was really scary when that first came about. No one really understood what was going to happen there. No one really regulated it, and it's gone fine. It's gone great, guys. Don't worry about it.
Where it could change is in sort of social media content, because I think from like we're now seeing a lot of the biggest TikTok videos of like the past week, the past couple of months are being these Veo 3 generated videos. And there's this like new form of media that's been developing, which is basically like, it's effectively a movie or a 50-minute story told in like 1 minute chunks.
Yes,
I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically, they always have a cliffhanger on the end.
Yeah.
And it's precisely the sort of content that you could get AI to really help you with. Because also it's, a lot of the acting's already, to be a bit
fantastic,
pretty bad. But in the story's also not the best. But basically it's just really quick fire stuff. You could just probably get an AI to output all of this stuff, and maybe that's where we see it sort of dominate. But maybe sort of, I think there'll be different tranches for things. It might help in some ways, hinder in others, but I don't think we're going to see, hopefully at least, we won't see sort of the film industry completely collapse under the weight of AI stealing creative jobs, because I don't think robots are going to replace the human mind.
No, we hope not. But they could become the human mind, Matrix style, and just start taking the data from our brains instead of taking them from the things we create. So
Drop that in very casually.
let's just go slide it in there.
And then on the Android XR side of things, that has got a lot of AI baked into it, because I think one thing that I think was sort of maybe not ignored, but missed by some as part of the I/O 2025 announcement is obviously they've got to have these glasses that will have an AR HUD, so that's augmented reality, so you can see things like a map on your screen, so it will show you which directions you've got to go. It will show you it's got cameras built in, and if you take a picture, it will show you the picture that you just took.
Nice.
And as someone that's used things like the Meta Ray-Ban, which also have a camera but no screen, it can be kind of challenging to tell if the picture you just took was any good without checking your phone. But if you're going to get your phone out, you might as well just take the picture on your phone, because the quality is normally better and it's easier to frame the shot. So that will be a massive advantage. But there will be those non-display equipped glasses as well that will just rely on sort of Gemini AI, which is what we've already seen from the likes of Meta and a few other companies. And so that's going to be kind of interesting. Firstly, to sort of see this other big player enter the game with not just partners with Samsung and Xreal on the tech side, but like how Meta's partnered with Ray-Ban to bring these kind of stylish glasses. And at the time of recording, probably Oakley. Technically, it's just announced that it's doing something with Oakley, and we've heard rumors it's doing smart glasses. It's not officially said that it's doing smart glasses, but I mean, like, Oakley makes glasses.
And they're the same company as Ray-Ban.
Owned by EssilorLuxottica, so it makes a lot of sense. But basically, they're also Android XR is partnering with Warby Parker, Gentle Monster, and a third brand I cannot remember off the top of my head. But again, they've made glasses in partnership with brands like Balenciaga and Gucci. So this very high-end fashion brand. So I think that we're going to see a lot of things in that space. It's going to be really interesting. Wearable AI have sort of struggled in the past, but I've also the glasses side, the Meta Ray-Bans are apparently super popular. I guess that's a question for you guys, because obviously I really like wearing my Meta Ray-Bans, and I'm kind of sold on a lot of this idea of having AR glasses and wearable AI stuff. Would you guys be keen to swap glasses to that sort of thing, or start wearing smart glasses in some way?
Would I behave as insufferably as in that Meta advert with Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pratt?
Only if you want to, I guess.
You are a tech bro, so it's a different kind of insufferable potentially. No, you don't have to.
Oh, then it's fine, yeah.
What about you? Have you ever been interested in them?
It's not really something I've sort of explored. Like, I think the concept's great. I love any kind of bit of tech advancement that feels very sort of like, that sci-fi dream come to reality. But yeah, sometimes I like to step away from tech, and I think my glasses would be one of them. So.
Yeah. Touching grass every now and then is advised. Is advised.
I also really don't see that we're at the point where people who don't need to wear glasses are going to be like, this is adding so much to my life, I will start doing that.
Yeah, I mean, like them going with Oakley kind of makes sense, because that's more of like, it's almost like having a body cam, an action cam just on your face.
Yeah,
right.
It's
sporty.
It's kind of a better fit than Ray-Ban.
Yeah, those are the rumors, that it will be a little bit more fitness and athletics focused. So it will introduce some things for cyclists, because it's going to be according to the rumors again. So take this with a pinch of salt. By the time this comes out, the announcement will probably be live, so you'll know if we were right or not.
We'll cut all of this.
I think it's the Sphera model, which are the sort of the visor type glasses.
Oh, sure.
So the classic Oakley.
I think Oakley's
glasses.
done AR stuff before with that kind of style, hasn't it? But
I don't know off the top of my
a
head.
few years ago, but not AI powered.
Let's move on to the main topic of today's episode, the very reason you both are here, other than because we love having you, obviously.
Thanks.
So we're going to kick off with a little game that I've called Breakthrough or Bait. Now, sort of, we're going to be role-playing here two people who don't know as much about TVs as you, because obviously we know loads about TVs ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And then OLEDs from OLEDs.
And we're going to be asking you about different tech that goes goes into TVs and asking if it's actually worth it for some of these 2025 models where the price is pretty high. So first and foremost, Matt, I wanted to ask you to give us a little bit of a rundown of like the OLED tech that's come out this year or that's popular this year, and just give us a bit of a breakdown on what's happening there.
So, a little bit of background on what goes on with OLED TVs. They're almost all OLED panels that go into the TVs are made by LG. Samsung in the last few years has also started making an alternative type of OLED TV tech called QD-OLED, which is also going into computer monitors now. So those are the two options basically for TV manufacturers to use. And this year they both kind of released a new generation of panel that in both cases are the brightest they've ever been before. So LG has introduced an extra layer of OLED pixels into the panel, a 4-layer tandem panel. Tandem OLED was like talked about loads last year when the iPad Pro came out, and it was a big deal that it was kind of the first small panel that had 2 layers of OLED pixels. This has been normal in TVs for years, and the new LG panel has 4 layers. The Samsung panel, I don't actually know what they did differently, but it's just also brighter and better, isn't it?
Some trickery, yeah.
Yeah, assorted technical engineering.
That's the whole CES
Wizard
keynote.
just sort of waved their hands over it, and it's done a bit better now. Yeah.
But basically, there was a bit of a breakthrough this year with the brightness in OLED TVs, and both of these panels can now go basically as bright as mini LED TVs can for peak HDR brightness, which is where you have a very small area of the screen that can go very bright. But also for full screen brightness, which is where OLEDs really struggled, because if you're watching sports during the day, it's a bright room, you're watching something that is kind of evenly bright across the whole screen. It gets really washed out if the screen isn't very bright because it can't overcome the brightness shining in and reflecting off the panel and all of that. So you need brightness in the TV that is a good level so that the colors beat the sunlight, basically. And both of this year's kind of new flagship OLED panels have really made a big change there. Now, James, you've basically had both of them side by side in the testing room for the last week. So how have you felt about them?
So the big sort of difference between the two, so basically the flagship OLEDs are the Samsung S95F and the LG G5. So the S95D, the S95S predecessor, its big selling point, one of them, was this like matte screen. So what didn't sound particularly revolutionary because they've been using it on their frame TVs, which are like QLED ARM model TVs for years. But when they put it on the OLED, it basically null and voided all reflections. So it basically meant that you could watch really, really dark movies. Like I always use the Batman for our testing, which is mastered at a super low brightness anyway. So it's quite a tricky one for TVs. But I was able to watch it with like bright lights overhead. But you know, in its predecessor, like the S95D, the black levels kind of took a bit of a hit as a result. And that's what OLEDs are known for, is those really nice sort of rich, deep black levels. Side by side, the S95Fs are an improvement, but when it's next to the G5 still, which has that sort of glossy screen, still more impressive. Like I think the G5's sort of black levels were better.
That's the LG model is better.
Yeah, the LG, the G5s were like much better in comparison to the S95Fs. But generally, like next to each other, you can really see that improvement in peak brightness. Like both of them were coping pretty well in a bright room. So filmmaker mode is like one of the dimmer sort of settings, and it's the one we always use for our testing because it's the one we deem to be the most accurate, and it's the one TV brands will often say, like, you know, that's the one that filmmakers would like you to use.
It also gives us a really good comparison line because it turns off a lot of the processing. It means that if we compare filmmaker mode in LG to filmmaker mode in Samsung, it's quite a fair comparison.
Right.
So they've not got all that extra stuff going on that's maybe tweaking the image one way or another.
Which is, you know,
baseline.
Obviously, we do test with that stuff because when you watch it, you're going to see that stuff, and the end result is what's important. But filmmaker mode gives us an interesting. There is no completely neutral way to test TVs, but filmmaker mode at least gives us a bit of a baseline.
So I guess the real question is then, bait or breakthrough? I'm sounding like breakthrough on this new OLED tech that's come out this year.
I would say yeah, because like the G5 is such a step up over the G4. I think Didn't find that from the G4 to the G3, which from like 2023. But yeah, the improved black levels, it's better at handling reflections. It's so much brighter. It's more colorful. It's just, yeah, I think the S95F, a nice little step up over its predecessor, but I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking a difference.
Right.
I think that's fair.
Right. Not quite bait. Mid level.
One TV we haven't mentioned yet is the new Sony Bravia 8 II, which we also have in for review right now, which uses the Samsung QD-OLED TV panel, just like the Samsung S95F does, but it doesn't have a matte screen. So a lot of like cinema aficionados are really excited about that one because the Samsung panel has incredible colors. James, it's the first TV you've ever tested with 100% of the cinema color gamut support?
Yeah. So loads of TVs have come sort of really close to hitting this particular sort of like color gamut benchmark. Like I think the LG G5 got like 99.7. So so close. And then, but it was quite funny. I literally tested it yesterday and it was just funny to see the number just straight away just went 100. I can't measure it anymore, so it's perfected. So yeah,
Can't measure perfection. There you go, breakthrough on that one.
But so this Sony TV is coming up. That a lot of cinema fans are like, well, that's going to be the one to get because it's going to have a glossy screen with deep blacks like the LG, but it'll have the Samsung panel that has even better colors. However, we've been testing it. It doesn't have this crazy next gen brightness. It's so much darker than either the Samsung or the LG that we don't know why. I've been speaking to kind of some of my friends in the industry and they have theories, but for whatever reason, Sony has, I guess, limited the brightness of it, and it's closer in brightness to Samsung's mid-range OLED, the S95F, than the high-end one, but it's priced like the high-end one. So that's a bit of a disappointment because it includes like I say, the really important one is the full screen brightness. That's the one that kind of means you can watch in bright rooms and it overcomes being washed out. But the full screen brightness is way lower as well. It's over 50% brighter on the LG and Samsung than it is on the Sony.
And so, but I'm assuming it's sort of like a smart TV, it can connect to the internet, all of that. Is that sort of brightness, if it is sort of a brightness limiting on the software side because it's got the hardware in to achieve the same results, is that something that could be changed down the line?
We don't know. There's a million reasons. Yes, possibly. It might be possible to do that with firmware, but if there could be thermal reasons why they're limiting it to do, they don't want too much heat to go through. It's impossible to say without kind of knowing more.
Taking it apart.
Right. The next on the bait or breakthrough list is RGB mini LED. Explainer, and also is it bait or breakthrough?
So mini LED TVs, or like all LED TVs, have a backlight that's a single color and then a layer of pixels in front with color filtering elements in them. And so that's how you see kind of the right colors in the right pixels across the whole screen. This is way cheaper than OLED, which is why these are the cheaper TVs and OLED is expensive. RGB mini LED will mean that instead of the lights behind the pixels being a single color, they will be able to change color. So like, imagine, if you took the pixels off and you were just looking at this light behind the panel, it would actually look pretty close to the final image just on its own, even before it goes through the final filtering layer. And the reason why this is an advantage is those color filters absorb energy. So they reduce the amount of brightness coming through. They make the TV a bit less efficient. So if you can generate most of the color from the light behind the panel, you can use less color filtering, which means you can either have the same brightness at lower energy, and therefore maybe like lower cost, or you can have even brighter TVs, which we're getting to the point where that is wildly unnecessary, but you could do it. And so this is just a really interesting breakthrough in terms of that. And in terms of, again, it should mean amazing color reproduction, really vibrant, wide colors.
I guess that if you keep ramping up the brightness, you do get to the point where it sort of becomes like a 4D TV because you can feel the heat when a big sun appears.
It's getting there.
Unless you're watching a film that's set in an ice tundra and then...
Let me just really cool it down and get washed with cold.
So is this bait or breakthrough? Is it something people should look out for?
Well, this...
It's an interesting one because you've actually seen the first sort of models, haven't you,
Yes, I've seen in
CES.
2 tech demos and 1 real one that's coming. So Hisense is going to have the first one of these.
Right.
And we should be getting to review it soon, hopefully.
Check out techradar.com for the full review.
And it's the thing about it is it's 116 inches, and that is
Right.
going to be the only model.
Oh.
And Samsung has just gone into test production of its version of this at 115 inches.
Okay, right.
So,
So-
that price, it would be what, 2-3 more grand?
I would expect 20 grand. Would be my guess. So I would
Too
say,
much for a TV.
Too much for
That's
anything.
too
I
much
mean,
for a
for a 115-inch
That's
TV.
still too much for a TV. 20 grand.
Considering you have to also then factor in the cost of having a room that is big enough to
Exactly.
house said TV.
I would assume you already have one if you're
Well,
considering
yes,
it.
Yeah.
well, exactly. Quite.
Otherwise, I guess if you're buying a new house just for that, you could add it to the mortgage, maybe.
Just can I put that down as an incidental?
So I would say the tech is a breakthrough.
Uh-huh.
It is quite a big deal because it shouldn't really cost any more than current mini LED technology does,
Okay.
but it will be better if they can produce it at a size that will actually fit in your house. So like it's obviously not there this year. And I don't know that it's going to start. I don't know that it's going to come to 55 inches next year.
No. Well, how long do you think we'd have? Like a couple of
Be a
years?
few years at least, wouldn't it?
I don't. Some of these things go quicker than you would think.
Yeah.
In mini
suppose
LED
so.
especially,
It's-
because
it's
it is
like
such
the-
an easy tech to produce compared to
It's like
the
we,
other stuff.
we don't even want to get into the micro LED debate, but like that.
That's not coming. Like
Yeah.
I would say 10 years for micro LEDs.
Yeah,
realistic.
yeah.
Okay, so micro LED is bait.
Yeah.
RGB mini LED is breakthrough, but bait in that it's not going to be attainable for anyone. Probably most of the people watching this podcast, if not all, will not be attainable for them in the short term.
Late this year, but genuinely keep your eye on it. It is coming and it might be faster than you think.
Okay. And the last one on the list, wireless TV tech. So this is one I'm quite interested in because I detest cables, not even just aesthetically. I hate the fact that you have to individually clean cables and stuff. No, not for me, not for me. But I don't actually know if this technology is any good right now. So interested to hear both your standpoints. Is it bait or breakthrough?
So, well, you got to test it. But
Yes.
basically, the principle here is your TV is still going to need a power cable. So there will still be one cable going.
That's what I was wondering if it was like a battery-powered TV.
Which there is one you can buy.
I guess, but are they small ones or are they big ones?
No, it's like 55, 65 inches.
Oh,
But the idea is all the cables, which will still be there and will still need cleaning, but they'll be connected to a separate box that goes somewhere else. It can even kind of go into a cupboard or across the room or whatever. And then you have, in theory, kind of lossless, very low latency, although we'll talk about that, transmission of a full fat 4K HDR image being beamed from the box to the TV, and it's nice and aesthetically pleasing, and it gives you flexibility in how you set up your room and things like that. So LG's had this for a couple of years. This year, Samsung is introducing it on a couple of TVs, including the new frame, the Frame Pro. And it
yeah,
is an
saw that.
interesting one because that's a very aesthetically led TV and makes a lot of sense.
That's the TV that got me interested in this wireless TV tech because I love the look of the frame. Like I'm very much like a home decor driven tech buyer when it comes to things like that. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. And to see it wireless just really actually makes it sing the way that you would expect a aesthetic TV to sing.
Yes. Now, James, you actually got to try it out a bit.
Yeah, so I thought it was it was impressive. So Samsung have had the One Connect for years, which is basically just all the sort of cables in one little box with a connector cable straight to the TV. So it means you haven't got loads of wires hanging off. Great for wall mounting. But there's always that one cable, which when I used to work in AV retail, people would still complain about. So now that they've introduced this wireless TV tech, obviously wireless and sort of sound and everything like that can be an issue. Generally, when I tested it, I found it pretty smooth. The only thing that was a bit of a worry was the input lag. So for gamers, you know, you're going to want the smoothest sort of performance.
This is what I was worrying about.
For love nor money, no matter what I did, I could not get it below a number that was about 3 times more than a wired TV. So
Oh, that's not
yeah,
great.
and I did everything, and you know, I did ask Samsung. They said it should be able to hit this number, and I was like, okay,
But it's not.
I'm currently not hitting that number. But so I'll give them benefit of the doubt. They did tell me they could hit lower, but from my testing, it couldn't. And unfortunately, I think for gamers, that is going to be a deal breaker. So
Yeah.
it'd be lovely to have your console off to one side and you could just have the picture there. But yeah,
I mean, what we're talking about in real term is the difference between 10 milliseconds and 30,
it was
35
36 or 30. So yeah.
milliseconds. So if you are just playing, RPGs where timing doesn't matter so much, a Final Fantasy or something, then that's actually probably not going to be a problem. That's going to be okay. But if you are going for precision shooters or
Racing games,
Dark Souls where parrying time, like all that stuff, you don't want to have that extra gap between when you press the button and when you see something happening on screen.
We had that experience with me trying to play Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch.
Slightly different though, because you're trying to play via screen share on my Switch instead of on the one that you were using.
So it's like a full second difference.
It was very difficult.
I was about to say, having watched that, I'm not sure that I could deal with any input lag on Mario Kart, because I think I got so much second-hand stress from watching you try and just navigate a tunnel, just a straight
one wall, tried to correct, hitting the other wall on the other side of the tunnel.
The game that makes people the angriest in the world at the best of times. You really don't add any other to it. Yeah.
Exactly. So we know a little bit more of the terms that we are and we aren't necessarily looking for when we're buying a TV now. But it's quite hard to know when you actually look at the price. If you're getting a good value product, if you're getting something that's worth it for your needs. I certainly find that it can be a bit of a minefield looking through all the specs and the qualifications and the cable and the port name. It's a lot. It's a lot. If people are looking at shopping for that top tier TV in 2025, what are they looking for in your opinion? I know we've not finished reviews for some of these things yet, so it's just your personal opinions versus the TechRadar verdict.
I think the LG G5 delivers the best sort of all-round picture quality out of the bunch, but it is also the complete package. Like, it's got decent built-in sound, which is quite a rarity nowadays. Even its AI Sound Pro mode, I usually try to avoid AI things. Even that's pretty good, and I have to admit it, and I hate that. But yeah, and like in terms of complete gaming features, everything like that, it does the lot. I think the S95F is still one of the better options if you've got a really, really bright room. If you're looking for a flagship OLED and you just can't deal with ambient light, like you've got big bay windows or something like that, then that's going to be the best option. You're going to be able to watch everything without fear of like mirror reflections, basically. So I think those are the top two OLEDs.
Coming down to the mid-range OLEDs, we were talking about it earlier. We still think the C4 is the best value. That's going to be on sale for a while.
Yeah.
But the G4, the predecessor to the G5, is still around. The G5 is a big step up in brightness.
It is.
But the G4 is going to be available for some crazy low prices.
Right.
And is a lot brighter than the C4. And the difference between them, when we come to Amazon Prime Day or Black Friday, if they're still around by Black Friday, like there might be quite a slim price difference between those two TVs, but there is a big step up in picture quality if you go to the LG G4. So this year, that will definitely be a really good bit of value.
100%.
There's always sort of feels like there's new enhanced OLED tech coming, and normally that then means in other areas of tech, that means that there's the lower end tech comes down in price, and that comes to lower end models, and that it means that OLED would be out there in cheaper TVs. And I feel like that's not happened with OLED, that the OLED TVs keep saying the same price and at a high price because it keeps getting better, and the worse OLEDs is not there anymore, and OLED TVs are just not accessible. Whereas, because I feel like they've been around for like a decade at consumer level, and at this stage, I feel like you would see sort of your Hisense, your TCL, your sort of lower end brands offering something that's approaching affordable, and that doesn't seem to be the case for OLEDs.
So there's two things there. So basically the answer is, I said there's only two manufacturers of OLED, so that doesn't help with competition and bringing prices down. And especially as what we hear is the Samsung panel is quite expensive, whereas you can get cheaper ones from LG. There's a few Chinese companies that supposedly have been working towards offering OLED TV size panels as well, but hasn't happened yet. OLED is really difficult to make. It has specific production challenges that just have never genuinely been overcome. And there are always new developments coming that are supposed to like help make them easier. The one that's been talked about for the longest is inkjet printed OLED, which is basically changing how you put the organic LED material onto the panels. And in theory would be kind of the great, next big thing for OLED production. In practice, I've been told by TCL, which is kind of the leader in this area, that in TV-sized panels, it's at least 5 years away from being commercially viable, maybe longer.
Not good news for me then, when we get cheap OLEDs.
Yeah, exactly. And, you were saying about all these advancements keep coming. The thing is, they come at the flagship level, which is basically where there's money to play with.
Yeah.
The budget OLEDs and the mid-range stuff doesn't develop anywhere near as fast as the rest. The LG C5, which is the mid-range one this year, is nearly identical to the C4.
It's a little bit brighter and it has a couple of new AI tools.
But that's still like
about it.
kind of up there in price. Well, because the C5 is what, like for like a 55-inch model, that would be
It's about,
At 55, it's like 1,600
yeah, I think that's
at
fair,
launch. I mean, one of the things with these TVs on the yearly cycle is they drop in price so much from launch.
Yeah.
Which is something that's complicated for us when we were reviewing them, of kind of going, well, we have to review this on the price it's coming out at.
Yeah.
But I know that in 4 months, it will be 20-30%
I'm
cheaper.
pretty sure they've already knocked like £200 off in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
They're
as long as
straight
these sort of
afterwards.
Black Friday deals, there's normally like some silly cheap OLED that's like 50% off. And it's like,
Well, and last year's LG C4 is still around and is now, what, 40% cheaper, 50% cheaper on,
Yeah,
on
it literally just
days?
keeps dropping all the time.
so is that sort of then what I should do is just don't bother getting the new one, get an old one and get it that way.
By last year's model, basically.
Every so often there will be some big change in a year where we'll kind of go, okay, this is worth it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, with those mid-range OLEDs, because they don't progress as fast, if someone looks at our best TV guide, it's the LG C4 at number 1, because right now that is the best balance of price and picture quality, and it's available everywhere.
Yeah. And then on that mid-range level as well, obviously you've mentioned a couple of mid-range OLEDs there, but sort of that more general consumer level of mid-range TV doesn't necessarily have to have OLED in it, but that sort of all-rounder that people are going to have a good value for money and let's call it affordable, as much as these things can be affordable. What sort of TVs are sitting in that bracket this year?
Well, TCL and Hisense are dominating that space
100%,
right now.
yeah.
The mini LEDs from those two companies are like, the Samsung mini LEDs are more refined, would you say?
Yeah, I think they sort of deliver like the more complete sort of experience. But yeah, what you can get in terms of value for money from Hisense and TCL is just pretty unbeatable.
I mean, they're both really good across the range from last year's models, aren't they? This year's models we're still in the process of reviewing. We're just getting them in now.
Yeah, so like I really liked the TCL from this year. I reviewed the UK version, but we do have the UK and US version. That's where it gets a little bit complicated. They have different names in the US and UK.
But the mid-range mini
Makes
LEDs,
our
But they are
easy.
mid-range mini LEDs. So, but the sort of TCL C7K is the one that like sort of ticked all the boxes. It was like cheaper than the C8, which is the flagship, but it's better all round than the C6, which is the budget one. So in terms of like all your features that you're looking for, especially for gaming and its mini LED performance, that's definitely sort of like one of the top buys. Hisense is an interesting one. As you said, we haven't fully viewed them all yet. Last year's models are really good and they're going for mad prices, especially in the US. Whether they'll still be around at Black Friday, I don't know. They are starting to dwindle. But because they're so popular, we always recommend them purely because of and they always have, as I say, mad deals on. So that's why they're so popular doing all these big trading events. So if you can get one of the last year's ones, great. But already seeing deals on the new ones. So it's like they launch it at a price just so they can go, and I'll take 300 quid off.
I feel like that's becoming increasingly standardised across tech at this point anyway. And then when we're shopping at that budget level, which cut corners matter and what products sort of do that well?
So if you are wanting to do next-gen gaming, that's something you really need to look out for at the budget level, because you will find a mix of TVs that have 4K 120 hertz variable refresh rate support and ones that don't. And some of them will even appear to maybe support 120 hertz, but it's not actually true native support. It's a kind of upsampling, like motion smoothing kind of thing. So you need to be a bit careful. And then the other thing, you can get mini LED TVs at that level, which will offer just more colorful, brighter, clearer, better performance than a standard LED TV. So if you can find a mini LED in your price point, that is probably the one to go for. Again, that's most likely going to come from TCL and Hisense, although we really liked the Roku Pro, which is only available in the US last year, which has a new version coming this year. That was really good value. And you like the Amazon mini LED, is that right?
Yeah, so that I actually found really good for sport. So generally out of the box, its sports mode was just really good, like really receptive. I usually find that you have to really tweak the motion settings on the cheaper TVs, whereas like the flagship TVs just, they can play something like a soccer game or, anything like that really, really easily. Whereas
Like it'll look natural out of the
it will look natural, like you won't have the weird like screen tearing, there won't be like 5 of the ball and everything like that. Whereas the Amazon Mini LED just pretty much had it straight away. Again, because it's an Amazon product, going to get lots of discounts all throughout the year, so that's pretty much wait until it's on sale. There is also the step down Amazon QLED, which is a really good one. I really liked that when I tested it a couple of years ago. Obviously Amazon products, so it's going to be around for a long time, hopefully. But again, that regularly gets discounted down to, the 43's gone down to sort of 299 before, which for what it has is very good.
The other thing with budget TVs, if people are really just kind of looking for like, well, I kind of just want the cheapest thing, I'm actually not bothered about gaming features or price or whatever, I would say what you probably will care about is the usability of the smart TV software, and some are better than others. Roku is really good for that, for being like quite responsive, working well on cheaper models.
Very simple as well.
It's very simple. It's very easy to use. Fire TV, Amazon Fire TV, it can be quite sluggish on cheaper TVs.
I've got Fire TV,
But it is like, it's pretty well laid out.
Yeah.
Say.
Yeah, it's good for like recommendations and stuff like that. It's very sort of user focus.
Amazon Prime Day is coming up 8th of July to the 11th of July, I believe, this year. 4-day sales event. Crazy. What TV should people be looking out for this year in the sales?
Oh, we've mentioned it a few times, but the LG C4 is absolutely going to be a slam dunk. It comes in so many different sizes. It's so cheap now all the time, let alone over Prime Day. That's going to be a good option. It's an Amazon event, so the Amazon TVs will definitely get discounts. So the mini LED for sure.
The QLED will probably take a drop in price, but also we've mentioned them already. Hisense and TCL can probably expect last year's models like the U7N and the U8N will probably now be available for really good prices.
Those are both really good, like sweet spot.
Yeah.
In both the UK and the US, the U7N and U8N.
Yeah, and then you've got like the QM8 TCL from this year and the QM7. Again, basically the equivalent of the Hisenses. That's the ones in the US. And then in the UK, the C range that we've already mentioned. So I think those are some of the those are going to be sort of the top TV deals, I reckon.
Yeah, that's what I look out for.
Nice.
I do love the slam head onto keyboard approach to TV naming conventions. Just
it's funny when you mentioned
QM7N,
naming conventions earlier. I was like,
so
you
good.
wait till we get to TV.
I did feel bad about slamming the Rog Ally. Rog.
Rog Xbox Ally.
I mean, it is also a Rog Ally, so you weren't entirely wrong.
Yeah, there's too many Rogs, too many allies, and too many letters in TV name conventions. Same with headphones. Audio in general AV in general seems to have a problem with naming things.
We've been shortening the names of all these TVs, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sure.
W something,
Yeah,
something.
the LG C5's name is 8 letters long, technically.
No, someone sneezed and just put all the letters from their sneeze in there. We'll be covering all of the Prime Day deals live on TechRadar.com throughout the duration of the sales event, so make sure to check out all of Matt and James's recommendations as they go live. That is unfortunately all we have time for this week, though. I would like to thank Hamish Hector for joining me today, and a big thank you to Matt and James as well. For more content like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel where we've got all the best news, reviews, and more. And if you want to see more of our content, check out TechRadar.com. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!
Bye.